Right, so far on Project Uno Betancourt, I have changed the plugs. Two of them were snapped, the enamel bit was snapped on them loose. Changed the oil, new oil filter. It's running quite a lot better. I've fettled with the carburetor a little bit, but it's still idling too high, and I think where someone's tried to get it to run properly before, they've adjusted the throttle return screw, and so it's always idling too high, about 1200 RPM, which should be about 850, 900, anything less than 1000 really. Mil, so they say. So I'm going to take off the airbox and get to that underneath. So first of all, I'm going to run some Worth engine flush through it. So I'm getting it nice and warm now, and then we'll put this in, leave it for 10-15 minutes, and then drain the oil and do a full oil change on it. Hopefully that'll get out any particles, get the filter changed obviously as well. So the engine's nice and warm now, so I'm going to drop this in. So this is the airbox. It's a bit battered and bruised around here. I've siliconed the gaps, but that shouldn't really make a difference to the running. I've just got to undo this screw here, which then take the airbox off, and then I can get to all this assembly underneath, which needs good greasing and sort of looking at really. I think the the choke, I think needs a return spring on it, which it hasn't got. So sometimes it returns when you push it back in, but sometimes it doesn't. It stays wide open, and then the engine cuts out obviously when it gets warm. So I'm going to have a look at that as well. Right, so this is it without the airbox on. As you can see, this here is the return screw, so when it throttles on, it returns to that. And I normally wouldn't mess with this because this from the factory should be right, and carb settings are what change it. But I think someone's actually had a little go at it and tried to increase it so it doesn't, so it idles high. So I'm going to check with that. This is the choke system here, which you can see is stiff. It stays in like that, stays out, stays in, it stays out. And sometimes when you try to push it in the car to switch it off, it doesn't, it stays there. So I think that needs a little bit of lubrication or looking at, and we'll take it from there. But it's very dirty, it's very, you know, it's been used. So as you know, when I bought the car, the washers weren't working, the front window was down and not working, but now we have a working window and working washers. The rear washer also works, which is good, instead of pumping water into the back of the car, which is interesting. And the whole problem, I went through all the fuses under the dashboard, none of that. I was getting a little bit lost, and then my friend Andre messaged me and he said he'd read on a forum that it's the connectors behind the steering wheel that can come a bit loose, get a bit crappy. And it was this massive long connector here. Basically I took it out, I cleaned it a little bit, put it back in, and then all of that started working. So that's a big bonus. However, I have found that this one, I haven't undone the door card yet, but the window is fixed up and can't go down. So I'm assuming that the motor's broke, the regulator's broke or something like that inside the window, but that's something else to check. The back of the Fiat, I've taken these lights work okay on this side apart from the reverse light, which is just going to be a bulb. This side nothing was working, so I've played around with it a bit, pulled the light unit off, taken out the connector from behind, which is here, which you can see is quite, it's got a little bit of greeny corrosion in there. This piece as well, which clips into that through the front, that had a lot of corrosion on these. Since doing that, I've now got the indicator to work, so I'm going to get some bulbs and see what else is working on there as well, because I haven't got any bulbs at the moment, which is unusual. Yeah, I'm going to try that out. So this is Andre, my chief polisher.
No, I'm not.
He's come to help me with some electrical problems, and we're just going to try and polish the car up to make it look a bit better, because obviously the finish is terrible. Yeah, and we'll see how it goes. So this morning I tried using the machine polisher, which Andre kindly lent me. I've never used one before, and it's come up really well, but I must admit, I put the machine polisher on, started polishing in, and it was just drying out so quickly because I think of the heat outside. So I've hand finished it, basically. Nothing like hand finishing. And so I've just done the bonnet, but as you can see, it's coming up quite nice. Just got to get the swirls out, and then it should be lovely. So it's polished up, needs a wash now, but yeah, I hand polished the whole thing in the end. But it's got a few dinks in that side door, but nothing too bad. It looks so much better already. It's got to try and find some wheel caps and then give it a clean before IPO. I'm going to pick up the starter motor now, which has been reworked. So yeah,